The mix. Guten Morgen. I've put together another carefully selected build. If you have seen my last two videos, you will probably figure out why I named it this way. Basically, I took the stronger elements from both and mashed them together. I will still explain the core idea here, but if something isn't clear, those previous videos might help you understand. You can find the links in the description. This one will be technical as well, since Hypnosis remains the main weapon. But I think I can say it's easier than the last one. If the gameplay looks a bit rushed, it's because I'm trying to bring in some dynamics and implement my own style, though the build itself doesn't require it. Even with absolute slow-mo and simple movement, enemies are quite manageable. You will have time for everything and plenty of room for mistakes too. Cold and electricity will play a key role here, essentially the interaction between the two, where the minimal delay between lightning bursts is reduced, won't really help us, since both of our weapons are rifles. However, these elements will make a huge difference in terms of damage. Lightning will completely ignore enemy armor, while freeze gives a 50% damage boost when we shoot frozen foes. The same bonus applies if our lightning jumps to a frozen enemy. It will make sense in a moment, don't panic. We will try to keep the Hypnosis third Mysterium active the whole time, which will change its damage type to lightning. That means enemy armor won't protect against it at all, and on top of that, we get a bolt that jumps to another enemy dealing 50% of the base damage, then jumps to one more dealing 25% of the base damage. Here is the thing though, this isn't really a bolt, it just looks like one. Air arcanas have no effect on it whatsoever. The same goes for our light spell called Lightning Bolt. Weird as it sounds, it also doesn't count as a real bolt. We get the bolt effect when we shoot an enemy already under the lightning status. In this build we can apply that status in two ways, with the light spell and with the Hypnosis third Mysterium. These have different multipliers. The lightning bolts is much stronger, so we will prioritize that one. The Hypnosis status can't override the spell status. The difference is that with an ailment power bead, the first jump within the chain gets a 75% multiplier instead of a 37.5. There's still gonna be a fair bit of chaos here in the system. What I notice is that when the real bolt jumps, the Hypnosis version doesn't. But that's fine, even though there will be more of them jumping that can effectively work at once, and at least we don't have to think in every situation whether our target has the lightning status or not. This is pretty much how it's gonna look. Enemies will be frozen or stunned, and electric bolts will jump all over the place with every shot. Let's look at the details. Hypnosis. This will be our main weapon. We need to keep the third Mysterium active, which only requires us not to miss a shot and not to reload. We will have fewer reload options this time, but we will have a really good chance to get one right from the start. And when it comes to reducing misses, it will help a lot that we will mostly be shooting at stationary targets. The weapon's sound and the flashing light helps you nail the perfect timing. It's also pretty usable with muscle memory. Just make sure the weapon is aim ready when you start to aim. Frostbite. Stronger than you think it is. This will be our secondary weapon and we're counting on it as a reliable freezing tool. Before combat, we charge up its freezing ability. We fire 4 rounds into nothing and perform a perfect reload. How long enemies stay frozen depends on how many rounds we fired. You can push this over 6 using reload tricks, but it's honestly not worth it. The included chart shows how these numbers play out. Majors usually have 50% resistance and some even more. That's why we prepare with a 4-round reload. It gives us enough time after freezing them to land the Hypnosis shot. During combat, I recommend stick to a 2-round reload because we won't have much time to spare on this. If we need to reload the freezing charge, 1 round will already be fired by then. In that case, all we have to do is fire one more quick shot right before reloading. Doesn't matter where it lands. This adds just a tiny bit to our reload time, but gives us enough of a freeze to comfortably take out a minor. Major enemies will already be thawing out by then, but we will have another way to handle that. We will get to it in a moment. It's worth focusing on landing consecutive perfect reloads, because it not only increases damage further, but also gives us an ice stray bullet start from the 3rd perfect reload onward. This trail shoots a freezing line straight in the direction of the shot. try to place them well. Even though no in-game encyclopedia mentions it, the freeze duration of the trail also gets longer depending on how many rounds you fired before that third perfect reload. Whisper! Since this will be a double rifle playstyle, and we don't have a quick soul siege trigger, let's put this little wonder to use. It will be good for stunning groups of enemies that are close together, and there will also be situations where it's the best option against majors. Its damage is really good if we use it up close, but the further the enemy is, the less damage it will do. It's useful and actively recommended, don't hold back with it. Just remember, we don't freeze stunned enemies because they will lose the stun multiplier, and frozen enemies can't be stunned. Lightning Bolt. It damages 5 enemies and applies the status effect, but only stuns the miner it hits first. That one will be our target because stunned enemies take double damage, and a certain percentage of that damage will jump with the additional bolts. You might encounter that bug with this build too, the one that adds a crazy delay to the light spell. If that happens, just switch to your secondary right as you cast the spell. Honestly, it's a good idea to keep switching weapons anyway, because during combat, fast weapon swaps often leave them in an uncocked state. Ice Sphere. It protects against ranged attacks and almost everything else. If someone touches the shield, they freeze solid for a long time. It's excellent for running into the middle of a crowd and activate it there. From that point on, pretty much everything is solved. There is no 100% protection, so this also has a weak point. An axeman's axe goes through it like a hot knife through butter. Be careful with that. Braid of Seductress and Ring of Thorns. If a melee enemy reaches us by chance and land a hit, they will freeze. The relic itself gives 30% protection against these attacks, but as an extra, if we kill them while they are frozen, we even recover half of the HP we lost. If we manage to dodge the hit, the ring takes effect. The enemy freezes, and if we finish them off before they thaw, there's a chance a blue orb will appear. Touching it gives us some ammo, fully refills our stamina and recharges our light spell. Chew! After kills, there is a good chance a yellow orb is left behind. Picking it up grants you ailment cleanse. Additionally, for 12 seconds you get a temporary shield, 35% reload speed and a moment speed boost. Right when you pick up the orb, nearby enemies also get knocked back. Related to this is the Bulwark Incense, which I recommend to slightly improve the effectiveness of our temporary shield. Beads! Don't panic! Free Arcana. This is a must for me. If I'm not spending on revealing hidden arcanas, I can spend more and also stockpile. You will only need that later if Perun shows up under Dead Eyes. In every other cases, you can spend all your feathers. Sprint Bead. I really missed it from the last build, so it's back again. It makes stamina management way easier. Light Spell Charge, so you don't have to wonder whether your spell has recharged or not. Elemental Duration, so the status effect lasts a little longer. Ailment Power. This won't affect the Hypnosis Third Mysterium, but it does affect regular bolts. It boosts the lightning bolt multiplier from 60% to 75%, and with the Thunderbolt Arcana that goes up to 125%. That will be the damage of the first jump of our bolt compared to the base damage, after which it halves. Based on the previous builds, you can already see where you might cut back. Skipping Free Arcana and Sprint dramatically lowers the minimum required level. I don't want to go further into this part. Prophecies. This time we will only use 4. Nimble Fingers in the first row, so the Hypnosis gets some kind of reload alternative. The 2 linked to elements, and finally Dead Eyes, where the goal is a double Perun. The rest remain empty. Nimble Finger. We are only interested in reload swap and key reload. At least one of these is usually offered as an option. You will definitely need one of them to keep the third Mysterium active. If on that rare occasion you don't get either of them, just restart the run. Air. There are few areas in the game as chaotic as when it comes to lightning. I already mentioned that the Hypnosis bolt isn't a real bolt. Thunderbolt doesn't add to its damage, we don't get extra bolt for it, a Perun doesn't grant extra bolt on headshots, and more bolt jump doesn't give it extra jumps either. However, it does count enough as a bolt to benefit from recharges boosts, and the conductor does transfer elements with it. I really consider the latter a great gameplay feature, and I'm glad when there's a chance to use it. To some extent, this inconsistency makes sense. On the first shot, the enemy still lacked the lightning status. After the shot, if the target survives, it gains the status, but that only comes with a 37.5% multiplier, and we know there is a better option. Still in that state, the arcanas will actually work with it. If we apply the status with the light spell, we will get a good multiplier as well. Dead Ice. Since this version no longer includes fire, we have an even better chance of getting Perun as an option here. There is a chance Critical Chain may appear under Nimble Finger and Shockwave under Air. In that case, only Deadeye, Cascade and Perun would remain in the pool. It could also happen that we get it as early as during Air Prophecy, which is fine too. Bolts will be jumping all over the place anyway. I personally think going beyond 3 bolts is unnecessary because they can't all take effect. You can get 1 by default, 1 from extra bolt and then 2 from here. At that point you could consider whether spending those 5 feathers to turn 1 bolt into 2 is worth it, or if there is perhaps another arcana that's more useful. Water. Let's start with the Freezing Gust. It can work a bit better here than in the last build because individual freezes aren't as long. Bagophobia is always a solid pick, its multiplier holds up nicely. Snowball is also really strong, but watch out because if you step under it you will freeze too. Ice Statue is a good option if you want to aim and time your shots calmly and cleanly. Shatter Soul's power isn't something you will really feel during the map itself, since there will be other damage sources that kill faster. But against the boss it's clearly a must-have. Along with it, all you have to do is freeze the boss 5 times and let it all, which fits perfectly into the build since we can pull off lots of short freezes without the boss becoming immune. The Relic, the Ring and the Frostbite's freezing shots all work like that. I felt it was better to leave the other prophecy rows empty. None of them adds enough to really be worth selecting. There's a very good chance we can still get extra water and air arcanas. With that in mind, it makes sense to wait and see what shows up here before rerolling too much in the water roll. And that's what I came up with for this week. Next time things are gonna be a bit more burning. I hope everything makes sense. If not, like I mentioned earlier, the previous 2 videos can give you some extra info, but feel free to ask in the comments too. See you next time.